Hello everybody, I'm here with
Josh Petersdorf. You know me as the voice of RoadHog in Overwatch. Perhaps you've heard me as Director Tone in Agretsuko, or perhaps some League of Legends, maybe Galio, or something like that.
Now, you've been working in the voice acting industry for some time now.
Yeah.
How would you describe working in this industry?
I would say you're going to hear no a lot, but at the same time, it's extremely rewarding because you hope and wish that you get to be a part of projects with amazing fans and communities like Overwatch and so on. Because then you get to see how your work has influenced and affected these people, and it's always flattering to hear people tell me about the massive adventures they've gone on with my character, whether it's in World of Warcraft doing quests or just fighting people in Overwatch as RoadHog. You know, it's really rewarding. So I'd say that's the best thing about voice acting, and it's an up and down hill, but I mean, so is life. So if you get knocked down 4 times, get up 5.
Now, for voice acting right now, especially for RoadHog, I would imagine it's a little challenging because his voice is muffled.
Extremely challenging.
How did you approach something like that?
It's a good question. So usually, I watched a lot of Frank Welker when I was a kid. Frank Welker does everything. I was really inspired by his work. So RoadHog is kind of a mix of Megatron meets Dr. Claw. That's kind of how I like to describe him, right? When he's very, get your gadget next time, but it's RoadHog, you know? So he was a huge influence, and I grew up watching Scooby-Doo and the real Ghostbusters and everything. I mean, Frank Welker was in everything, so he was pretty much, and my dad too. My dad would do silly voices. I want to say my dad and Frank Welker were the inspirations how I got started on this path.
Now, was RoadHog, would you say, was he one of your more challenging characters to do, or if you had another character that was a little bit of...
was hard. Galio was very equally as hard, but RoadHog especially because he has such a texture to his voice that once we figured out where we wanted to put him, it was about inflection, where to put the gasps, the breathing air, how the laugh was going to be, how much hissing we were going to get, stuff like that. So the people, Andrea Toyes and Michael Chu and everyone I work with at Blizzard was so cool and creating this character, and when we were recording it, it was really fun.
How did it feel voicing a character like, I don't want to say like bad guy, but like a bandit, you know, like
a rebel?
There
right?
we go. Yeah, like how did it feel?
I'm never the good guy. Even when I was in plays as a kid, I was like the villain in every single play. In Sherlock Holmes, I was the villain. In Robin Hood, I was King John. In Midsummer Night's Dream, I was Lysander, like the terrible lover. You know what I mean?
I've always been told too, the villain is always more fun to play.
Way more fun. And it's harder to be a baby face than it is to be a villain, so to speak. It's like pro wrestling talk. But at the same point, hey, everyone loves a V.
That is true. Now, you've also worked on Transformers before.
I do Optimus Prime and Megatron for Universal Studios Theme Parks Hollywood. So if you come see our show out there, we've been doing it for 5 to 6 years. We've had some amazing experiences with kids, getting to interact with them and take pictures and tell them how amazing they are. And we have these amazing characters in these giant suits, and the Transformers really come to life. And without ruining too much of the magic, it's a multi-person job to really make them come to life. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that the past couple of years. It's been great.
Now, I know Fred Tatasciore is a huge Transformers fan. Has there ever been moments where you guys just completely nerd out and just talk about...
We nerded out when I met him at BlizzCon, and he was doing the Hulk for me, and he was stealing RoadHog lines, and I was saying stuff to him. I got you in my sights. I'm not a young man anymore. He was like, we're all animals. It's very cool. So.
How would you describe the environment of working in the studio with Blizzard as opposed to any other studio? Because I would imagine it's a little bit different.
Well, they're top of the line. When you luckily get to work on a Blizzard game, you know that you're going to get the best you can get. And it was an honor and a privilege to do it, and on something I'll never forget. It was amazing.
Now, for games like League of Legends, or I'm sorry, no, scratch that. For games like Rage, like how would you describe like the meta between that and Overwatch? Because Overwatch is more of a multiplayer game, and Rage is a single.
Rage is focused on like solely single player. And I think it was smart because they didn't have to divert any attention or resources to anything else. Like, look, we're only going to do single player. We're about one thing, and that's where we're leaving it. And I thought that was smart because then they moved on. You can tell they kind of moved some of the, maybe the time and effort and resources went into Doom Eternal. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of the same kind of game engine. Whereas RoadHog is a team shooter. You're forced on interacting with your teammates. You're forced on communication if you want to win, and everyone wants to win.
That's very true. Now, for games like Overwatch, if you want to know more of like the lore of them, sometimes you have to go a little bit out of your way and like pay attention to the details. Maybe look up the comic books. But for games like Rage, it's more or less right in front of you. How would you describe like working as a character like that, where you have like maybe quip lines for Overwatch, and you have to read into that to see how they are, as opposed to a game like Rage, where you can be more expressive and describe your character?
Rage was motion capture, so automatically we were doing a lot more facial work in that, trying to match up some of the cutscenes and stuff with General Cross. No motion capture in Overwatch, but a lot more battle exertions in Overwatch. 4 different types of being electrocuted, now you're being lit on fire in the magma, now you're on cold from May's ice, you know. There's a lot of specific stuff like that. And vocally intensive, both of them were extremely intensive, because some of the last sessions I did with General Cross in Rage 2 were from the last part of the game when he's just yelling at you as you run through the level, screaming at you. So yeah, it's always seems to be what they come to me for, right?
Sorry about that. Are there any other like video games or studios that you would love to work with that you have yet to do?
Oh, promo plug time? Here we go.
Okay.
So coming up, we got We're Alive Frontier. Every night, Geek and Sundry's Twitch channel at 8 o'clock. It's a tabletop survival RPG. It's in the vein of Critical Role, but think zombies meets The Walking Dead, you know? We're just now getting some really great exposure on that. We filmed 2 seasons, 11 episodes, I believe, each, and that's available now Mondays at 8 on Geek and Sundry. Also just released Fire Emblem Mobile, the new character. I forget his name, but I am part of that Halloween DLC. And have some other exciting stuff and news coming out for the Switch too.
Awesome. So you have a numerous amount of back catalog coming out.
Yes, a bunch of cool stuff.
Now, for voice acting right now, it's like, how would you describe like taking care of your voice? Because I've heard different methodology, like people like drink warm water or like gargle stuff,
Room
whatever.
temperature water. Don't overexert yourself. Don't smoke cigarettes. Try not to drink a lot of alcohol. And take care of yourself. Eat healthy. Don't overdo it. And remember, a voice actor's greatest strength is your individuality. So your voice is what sets you apart. That's what makes you unique.
Something too I've noticed with a lot of voice actors, it comes to no surprise that they're a big fan of like animated shows, animes. Is there any shows like that or any animes that like you grew up with or you're very fond of?
I love the real Ghostbusters. And I watched another anime. The first anime I watched was called Unico. I don't know if anyone remembers that. Unico is about like this tiny little unicorn who falls into like a vampire's Transylvanian castle. It's so fucking weird. And I recommend checking it out if anyone has. And I watched a lot of He-Man. A lot of He-Man as a kid, and She-Ra, the crossover movie, like that blew my mind as a kid. So it was real Ghostbusters, Ninja Turtles, He-Man were my favorites.
If given the opportunity, would you work on an animated show?
I did. I got to work on Agretsuko. That was an amazing thing right here. Yeah, the camera pan.
Quick update. Sorry,
We're
the
back.
battery died.
The magic of editing on the internet.
So, I think that pretty much covers everything I'd like to talk about. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of agreeing to this interview. If people want to find you or your work, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at MenaceMade. You can find me on Twitter at CrankyJ. You can find me at Twitch at twitch.tv/Optimus_slimed. Come see us and say hi. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you so much.